Hello. Tenpa jumden den di shen shepa drachompa yangta pa sobe san. Ripa dan shakson tenpa devari shepa jiden jim. Jibun diwa kalo jiwa lana mepa lada menam jedem. Sanje jumden den bejawa shaja toba. Chaselo shudu yaso sheyo. Tenpa jumden den di shen shepa drachompa yangta. Zobe sanje ripa dan shakson tenpa devari shepa. Jiden Kemba Jibun Diva Kalo Jiwa Laname Tadam Benam Jedemba Sanje Jumden Den Bejo Shaja Tuba Lan Sa Zeno Chedo Jazu Cheo Demba Jumden Den Di Shen Shepan Jachumba Yanda Banzo Besan Rivada Shazun Demba Devare Shepan Jiden Kemba Jibun Kalo Jiwa Laname Ban Tadam Benam Jedemba Sanje Jumden Bejawa Shaja Tuba Lan Sa Zeno Chedo Jazu Cheo Kanse Kanyen Zowo Jedamuse, Sajen de na Gomba Dubru, Wanen Jiden de na Chojus, Teze Keba Jana Cha Zelo, Namda Gula Chodu, Ije Jazu Seje Humbonda, Taba Jiden Sunamunda, Gomba Chonyi Jana Cha Zelo, Senjo Demba Jimen Dabe, Sendon Dawa Jana Cha Zelo, Duje Jana Ziba Zuma, Nyame Kenshen Jana Cha Zelo, Gomba Tuji Chedem, 탐제 캠베 덴바보 소노메 연대 자주 리젠샤 나차 자모 다변대 자차 예외에서 내주지 제도 되는 주주 신주셔 나차 자모 전에 되면 라바달라랍도 내 신경 담아야 돼 게되마야 차 자모 디바치야 미지 게와변소 소바셰라게 쓰네요 테네 산제 덴바니 카마라레모 교마세바 슈브르다 멜롬 노다 텐데 Delusion de ta sonam de tam jesi Kovantum ne gengen da de gadan da chiva la tu sive zonen ro and revelation
to the teacher, the blessed one going beyond the all destroyer, completely perfected, fully awakened, perfect in knowledge and wisdom, so that no other word, supreme guide of kings to begin, teacher of us and humans, the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror. I subdue from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings and go for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one gone being, full destroyer, completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, so that no other word, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror. I subdue upon the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one gone beyond, the full destroyer, completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, so that no other word, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror. To subdue from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. Men supreme among humans, you are born on this earth. You paced out 7 strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise then, I prostrate. With the pure bodies formed supremely pure, wisdom motion like golden mountain. Flame that blazes in the 3 words. You know the best, to you I prostrate. With the supreme signs, face like spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. You are immaculate, the 3 words on it. Incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. Savior having great compassion, the teacher having all understanding, the field of merit with the qualities like vast ocean. To you, the one gone to dustness, I prostrate. The purity which makes one free from attachment, the virtue which frees one from the lower realms, the one path, sublime, pure reality, to the Dharma which pacifies, I prostrate. Those who are liberated and also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified the realization, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you, the sublime community, genuine virtue, I prostrate. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions. Perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. The star, mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, drop of dew or bubble, a dream, flash of lightning, or cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain rank of all sin, subdue the flow of faults, and be delivered from motion of suffering, of aging, sickness, and death. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddha for the benefit of all sentients. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddha for the benefit of all sentients. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Pumeya pumbone shimaya tena pume tena meya dijin shiba punde meya dijin shiba kaji. Kete sanje pumbona tena rajile yone rajile na kama dijin wina kama. Kaji shenye mwe tena teta nye dome tena kaji tanya me pate chita dijin shiba. Kete raji yone na shima yiba chita yone raji yiba mayin. Kete pumba da yene jatan chikwa jendu kete pumba namne chi pumbe sinye biwa je danyo yuwa ma jen dagi yuwa kama dadan dagi shiwe je manzeng wanyen zime yu manzeng wanyen zime ka tenya yuwa ma jen manzeng wanyen zime ka kanga tongwa me dama nanda shire nye dama dadan dagi nye zime nyewa le ma ka shu je te sebe ne jewa se leda nyuma sebe te leda nyuma namdo teta chwe chwe ne tongma nye jen ka ku je dago she je dajo je dame she je dame sanje namje dadan na dame ka me she je jeba chawan dama de simje chuyo dama 마제바도 마가바 춘이냐는 데도 소문 탐제 양다 마이니 양다 메메 양다 메텐데 산제제데 뭐 셴네 셴메 셴바도 저반도 좀 마주고 남도메데 다데 메텐데 데네 진이 강나데네 강주바 데네 리제데니 메텔레 셴마마 이제 디제시메다 산제제데 왜놈게 템바도 좀 줘바데 춘심만데 다데 체바만데 남문데 조산제도 마주지 녀려도 지세바 라산제지 신데 템바메다 rabde 겐 다다 쳬도 셰제바 라도 제가 저게 뭐 관계에 선생님이 나타와 선지 도매지 도매치는 데 거담은 되나 차제로 So we have been discussing yeah.
Oh, preliminaries.
Yeah, preliminary about the compassion. So compassion's Chandrakirti, where I think he's the same compassion, through generating, through reflecting upon 12 links and 10 originations and then generating the compassion. And then the example that they set here in Chandrakirti, but Chandrakirti is like a water wheel. He's setting up the kind of metaphor, using the metaphor of the water wheel. And in Nagarjuna, chapter 26, and he kind of setting the example like a field, right? Field and the seed and the fertilizers. So, like the field karma, afflictive emotions, the karma is like a field, right? No, karma is like a field. Afflictive emotion like farmer, the blind farmer, and then planting the seed of the consciousness. So as a result, the name and form, and then the faculties, the contact, and the feelings, and then that. So the out of ignorance, planting the seed, of the consciousness that fertilized by the craving and the grasping. So so their result is like birth and aging and death. Crops that we collected is birth and aging and death. And here the Chandrakirti is saying kind of the way he sees it, like water wheels, the bucket that goes kind of throw in the wheel, right? Tied up by the rope of the karma and afflictions. And the same thing is 12 links and dependent originations, but in different way, kind of, I don't know, different imaginations, maybe, right? There's different imaginations. So the chapter 26 of Nagarjuna, and like ignorance, like old man, the blind farmer, and within the karma, within his actions, planting the seed of the consciousness, right? The consciousness of the human being, consciousness of the God being, consciousness of the form realm being, formless being, lower realm, and within the lower realm there's animals, the hungry ghosts, and the hell realms. So planting the seed of that ignorance, the old ignorance is planting the seed within the karma, within his actions. And then seed that planted within the kind of karma, fertilized by the craving and grasping, and then growing up stronger, and then coming up as a result, like this life is name and form and faculties and feelings. And next life is the birth and aging and death. So these are the crop that we collected, right? So so you can, I think, different way your imaginations. It's all 12 links independent originations and the different, with different, what I call, different imagination, right? Right. Do you have better words for that?
Analogy.
Yeah. Different analogy? Yeah. Now, so I'm going to read from here. So I think this is something we need to pay attention here. Although the generating the compassion through reflecting upon 12 links or dependent origination. Now the question is, now if someone experienced no effect whatsoever in his mind, so that nothing, there's no movement at all, when he reflects initially on the way he himself wandered in the cycle of existence, when you think your own 12 links and dependent originations, if there's no movement at all, there's no effect at all, cycle exists, there is no way that such person would experience on the beginner stage an unbearable concern for others when contemplating their suffering. So, what is kind of emphasizing is first you have to reflect up on 12 links of dependent origination of yourself, right? Many times reflecting on 12 links of dependent originations. Then something that is, there's some kind of movement, some kind of changes, some effect. Then you can apply 12 links of dependent origination on others. So it kind of, So yeah, that's the kind of the point. Main point is first. So that's how people use these days the term compassion for yourself and compassion to other. Right. So compassion to yourself means now you need to know what is the root of your suffering, and what are the corporate conditions, right, of a corporate condition of the suffering, and how we collectively collectively cultivating the different karmas, right? So we need to know what here the saying, out of ignorance. The ignorance or grasping of self is the root of making you move your mouth, eye, body, right? So concept of I, the grasping of self, that moves your whole body and whole mind, whole expressions, whole plan, is kind of triggers by that the grasping of self. So the grasping of self is as a root of all this movement, right? Physical actions, verbal actions, mental actions. So this kind of what really moves, what really cause you to do things, say things, think things, right? Is all driven by the grasping of self. So the grasping of self is like the farmer, the old man who owned this kind of land, a field, and then with his action, he is planting the seed, right? So with his action, he's planting the seed. So through kind of due to the grasping of self and so much attached to one's own, and kind of attachment, out of attachment, you say things, you do things, you plan things, right? Or because of so much attached to yourself, you're detached other, you dislike other, you hate other, and out of that kind of hatred, you say things, you do things, you think something, right? So these whole become the old man, the ignorance is this is the way of his farming within his actions, right? And so what you plant the seed is the seed of the consciousness of human being, seed of the consciousness of the God being, or form being, form realms being, formless being, animals being, right? Hell realm and the hungry ghosts. Right? So out of ignorance. So Nagarjuna is saying, ignorance, you just imagine this old man not seeing well. So he couldn't buy the kind of the progressive eye sunglasses. So he is in the field, now he was doing something. And right. So keep thinking about one's own, out of my own grasping of self, that makes me say this today. All right? That makes me say this today. That makes me do this today. That make me thinking about something out of grasping of self. Right? So, and then the question is this ignorance alone is doing that? No. So ignorance, right? Marry with attachment. Now ignorance make attachment to do things. So ignorance make a relation with anger. Oh, now anger is behalf of the ignorance is causing something, right? Ignorance relation making friend with jealousy or arrogant, kind of spite. belligerence, right? And then the, haughtiness. So all this, the afflictions, the 20 afflicted, secondary afflicted emotions, and 6 root afflictions. Together, 26 afflictions, and having, serving as an employee for the grasping of self. And this whole employees and working with your verbal, working with your body, working with your mind, right? So that's how it is, farming in your actions and planting the seed. So if the emotions are negative emotions, and the seed will be negative seed, right? Unpleasant consciousness. And then the grasping of self also can strong relation with faith. Grasping of self, strong relation with attachment, and attachment that likely to make you do something positive actions, right? Out of attachment, you do prostrations, you do recitation, you do meditations, you do generosity, you practice patience. There's whole possible, right? So the grasping of self is the kind of, an old-time king, have many wives. So 500 wives. So when you get kind of relation with faith, compassion, right? And then you do positive karma. So as a result, and then the positive consciousness, right? The consciousness with the kind of precious human consciousness. So now I think sometimes we miss kind of, you understand, when we think about human being does not mean or have this kind of higher realm. So this is, so this is why it says, this line is, now, if someone experiences no effect whatsoever in his mind when he reflects initially on the way he himself wanders in the cycle of existence. So there is no way that such person would experience on the beginner stage an unbearable concern for others. You cannot develop compassion if you're not able to generate the renunciations. You cannot generate the compassion to others. Beginner stage, unbearable concern, contemplating their suffering. So therefore, just and explain in a commentary on the 400 stanzas, one must first contemplate suffering in relation to one's own self. So the first is very, very important, the one's own self. Yeah, this is how we teach. Yeah, you get teach in the airplane. First you put yourself mask, and then you put others, right? So first kind of make yourself more soft, more kind of sense of concern about yourself, right? So then you can generate sense of concern for others. So then one should contemplate in the relation to other sentient beings. So after having kind of some level of renunciation, then you can begin with contemplating on the 12 links and dependent origination on other. So now the question is, one might ask, will merely having contemplated how other sentient beings are tormented by the suffering and its origin in the cycle of existence induce the great compassion? So that's a question. So because the first thing is understandable if you think, reflecting upon 12 links and dependent originations of one's own, and then yes, it's possible that through that analytical meditation, you may generate sense of renunciation, sense of concern for yourself. All right. Now, this 12 links and dependent originations, kind of reflecting on others, applying on others, right? Just by reflecting on 12 links and dependent origination of others, can it, or is this enough? Is this plenty for generating the concern for others, right? So for yourself, yes, right? Because maybe generating renunciation and the compassion is, renunciation is much easier. I think one reason, because compassion to yourself is easier than the compassion to others, because the sense of kind of, there's a sense of me, sense of I, as because of sense of I with because of yourself, is there's more how say it? Because sense of cherishing, cherishing or endearment or cherishing, unbearable feeling for yourself is already with you, right? So kind of with contemplating on 12 links and dependent origination, without contemplating, without thinking about how's the cyclic existence, you still cherish yourself. You still have unbearable feeling to yourself. So because of this unbearable feeling, that makes, I think that facilitate the 12 links and dependent originations on yourself can generate the renunciation much faster than generating compassion to others. So now, from this, you can also, you can also understand why it's taking long, why it's taking too long for generating compassion to others. Why it's easier than generating the renunciation for yourself? Because unbearable feeling is there, and there is no unbearable feeling for others, right? So, in another word, they use endearment. So you have, you believe in the, you believe in the Buddha Shakyamuni's teaching or not believing in Buddha Shakyamuni's teaching, the unbearable feeling for yourself is always there, right? So this was kind of from the beginning last, you have this, right? Yeah, sometimes you can see those small insects, the ants, right? If you bring finger, they just look. So there's some, oh, what are you doing? So there's a kind of unbearable feeling to yourself is already there. So no one need to teach them. So now, to unbearable feeling towards other is we need to train the mind to develop so endearment towards others. Should contemplate relation, one might ask, will merely having contemplate how other sentient beings are tormented by suffering and its origin in the cycle of existence induce the great compassion? Or does it require some other additional complementary factors? The fact is, when we see the enemy suffering, far from unbearable feeling, sense of joy may even rise in its place. Similarly, when we encounter the suffering of someone who has neither benefit nor harmed us, most of the time we are unmoved by their plights. So the stranger, the suffering, when we see the suffering of the strangers, is unmoved, right? It's more like neutralness. This happens because we lack on our part the sense of holding them dear. So that's why it's a sense of holding oneself dear to yourself is no need to teach, right? So in contrast, when we see the suffering of those who we love, and close kin, we find this unbearable. So when you find someone close to you, someone you love, or someone who you love, so then when you find people who are close to you, when you see them in the suffering, and you find unbearables. So you find this unbearable. In fact, the more profoundly we hold someone dear, it seems the more intense feeling of unbearableness. So this is like, unbearable feeling is like a salt in that 12 links or dependent originations. So 12 links and dependent origin, although ingredients are good, but without salt, right? There's not much movement there. So editing the unbearable feeling or endearment or holding sentient being dear in your heart, and then reflecting upon 12 links and dependent origination on others, then for sure, definitely, we generate compassion towards others. Thus, the essential point is how we need to generate the sense of endearment towards others, other sentient beings, a deep regard for them, cherishing them in our heart. So now that we kind of understand that, feeling endearment or feeling unbearable for oneself is easier. Either you have to be kind of the person is you find he is so dear to you, or she is so kind to you, or he is my relatives, friends, right? So something that you have imposes I on that right individual. Maybe that not necessarily human being, right? The cat, dog, even not necessarily sentient being, table, right? Table, computer, watch, T-shirts. So there's always, because of this impositional of that self, like almost it is inseparable from that object, right? So this automatically it just bring closer to you. It is a magnet that just bring close to you. So then you find when you see that others, when the iPhone breaks or cracks, so that's unbearable. So iPhone doesn't can complain to you, but there is, because you have already kind of your most precious in your life is you have imposed on that, right? You include in the This is the part of me, right? So that's why there's unbearable. So here the Chandrakirti is saying this unbearableness or endearment towards others is one of the most, the principal factor for generating compassion. So now, with respect to the method of generating this sense of endearment, there seem to be two approaches among the learned masters. The first is explained by the Chandrakirti in his commentary on the 400 stanzas, when he speaks how once one has contemplated that all sentient beings have been once keen, having been once parent. Ken.
Family.
Ken means family.
Okay.
Once Ken, having been once parent. So that's what, this is how we use the term six, generating bodhicitta through 6 cause and 1 effect. Right, 6 cause and 1 effect. Every sentient being had been my mother. They've been kind to me. I have to repay their kindness. And and then this endearment, right? And then responsibilities. From now on, I'm going to kind of take the responsibility. I'm taking a pledge that I'm going to free all sentient beings from suffering. So 6 cause, and as a result, right, the 7th is bodhicitta. So bodhicitta means now this compassion's a kind of, compassion's as a seed, and then as a seed and grow the plant of the bodhicitta, enlightened mind.
What is 6 causes?
Every sentient being had been my mother. They've been kind to you, and repaying their kindness. Lovely love or endearment. And Laksam Namda means Laksam is kind of like responsible, taking responsible. So, and then the compassion, right? So the 1 effect, 6 cause, and 1 effect is the bodhicitta. So bodhicitta is something that grow from the seed of the compassion. Right. So so in this way, so this within the 6 cause and effect, 6 cause and 1 effect, there is some kind of thinking about every sentient beings had been my mother, because the kind of the timeless of your birth and second existence. Right? Because of that, every sentient being should have been my mother. Each sentient beings, right? So I think this term is very much. I think there's some connection with the culture in the Indian and Tibetans. So they always use the mothers to when it comes to like in India, there were small villages, and sometimes you see the small restaurant, and it says in India, my mother's kind of a flavor, like food, So people want to go because there's a mother. So mother's most delicious, delicious food. So there's a boat, you see. So kind of mother is something very kind of it connects them, right? So that's why I think in the Tibet and in India, it's more in like their land they call the mother, right? I think people call Mother Earth, right? And yeah, new modern, I don't know, in India, that not too many times they're using this term. In old times, still they use, even the cows are mothers, right? So, yeah, those kind of nomad people and the farmers, they have so much respect for cows. Cow or anything that gives you milk. So, so I think some people is really not easy to force their mind to believe every sentient being had been my mother. So I think here in the English translation they use one's parent. In Tibetan writing, you should always say mothers, not the parents. So exclude father. Father is not there. Yeah. For instance, since the beginningless time, one will have the forbearance to plunge into, right? Into the second existence to help free them. So this will be because of this every sentient being had by mothers, because the name mother and that mother they imposed on each sentient beings, and somehow kind of through many times training, right? Training or kind of to believing in it. So then eventually it turned like I can also go and help them remain there and eons and eons with helping all the my mother sentient beings, because they're almost like they're so like each sentient being becomes too close to you, so very very close, right, in your heart. So you can also sacrifice yourself to remaining even in Eldom in order for the freeing this mother sentient beings from the suffering. So these are some kind of the Bodhisattva's mind training. They do that, and so one will have the forbearance to plunge into the second existence to help free them. This is also the method taught by the great beings Chandrakirti, as well as the learned Kamala Shila. Those Kamala Harris. Kamala Shila. Kamala Shila. So Kamala Shila is the great master from Nalanda, who went to Tibet. Chandrakirti and Kamala Shila. So the second approach, right? The approach here means generating the sense of endearment towards sentient beings. The first is the believing every sentient being had been my mother. They've been kind to me. I have to repay their kindness, right? And having kind of so favorable, kind of loving towards every sentient being who had been my mother, and then taking pledge that I will be the one who will free every sentient beings, right? Sometimes this is called Bodhisattva's pride, right? So, but some Bodhisattvas, me alone, like, so me alone can free every sentient being from suffering, right? So, second approach, the tradition of the glorious Shantideva. This I have explained elsewhere, so please understand it from there. So this is through the dependent arising. So this is kind of, exchanging self to the other, through, I think, a deep understanding of dependent arising, interdependencies, and then kind of the understanding, I think dependent arising vastly, very kind of enlarged. You can contemplate everything is connected, interconnected, or entangled, right? So, through that way, you can come to understand the self or the me is the stretchable, right? This is like kind of to kind of the best rubber that you can stretch, and you can just also, stretch and pull back, right? So the self always, right? The self or I, right? For example, here, the concept of a braid, right? As a consist of color, smell, taste, tactility. It consists of, right, color, smell, taste, tactility. That consists of the very braid that consists of the four substance is absence in the color, it absence in the taste, it absence in the tactility, but these kind of color, smell, taste, tactility, by themselves, it absence of the consistent four substance as a braid, but these factors kind of are the basis for existing of the braid as the consist of the four substance. A forest, like for example, a forest as a singular, it is totally absent with each trees, but each trees together make existing of a forest as a singular, although the forest is absent in each trees, right? So in this way, self is always changing, like for example, when you are younger, right? You see only yourself. You have no family. You have no wife, no children, and no other things. So most of the time you think for yourself, right? So then you grow, right? Go to school, and then finding the friends, and then you become the businessman. You have office, you are employee, your product, and that might become bigger and bigger. The me is bigger, and somehow the crisis of the economic, you shrink. So yourself, the the self is big, it can be small. So I means me in my house. Again, you try, right? You kind of expand yourself, right? With your property, your positions, your employees, your business, and then the selves become bigger, right? This is me, there's me, that is me, other country, there's me. So the me is not always the self I is not existing with one basis. Although it's totally absent in each basis, but this is making existing of self. Right. Right now, if you are not kind of, for example, you're not a government employee, so and then you, you join in the politicians, you become the senators, and then you become president. So the time that you impose yourself, people kind of label you a president. Then I am the president, therefore I am with this department, FBI department, CIA department, every at the border, each citizens, my existing, myself is coming back. And then after the 4 years, you the president change, and again coming back to the origin, you're just citizen. So this is how, if the self is solid and concrete exists by itself, it cannot be exempted, right? It cannot be shrunk back. So that proves the self is not the concrete by itself, not the solid. So in this way, Bodhisattvas, when they practice the generosity, so their self and kind of their self that exists with kind of sense of giving, the willing to give is making me existing, right? Activity of giving is making me existing. To whom I'm giving is also making myself existing. And my patience. So with my generosity, with my patience, with my compassion, with my kind of, concentrations, knowledge. So automatically connected with every sentient beings, you are getting so much from each sentient beings. So, so you can see the self that exists with each sentient beings. So, so I think once you are able to stretch the self, enlarge, the cover up always every sentient without exceptions. Then you look back. So someone asks, choose all the sentient being in yourself. You choose sentient being, not yourself. Because by ignoring or neglecting oneself, still you are taking care of yourself. Like, the businessman, I think particularly the businessmen, and if he says, if someone asks him to protect your financial, you cannot sleep for 1 week, and he will choose not sleeping 1 week in order to protect his right, the kind of finance. He will choose, and he has so many excuses, right? I'm not just running this for myself. I'm running this for all the employees and their families, their kid going to school. So the people say that, right? So you still, right? The interdependencies, the absence of intrinsic existing can help you to generate, right, the compassion, a sense of unbearable feeling, or including every sentient being in your heart and a part of yourself. So I think if you're not practicing, generosity, patience, and cultivating knowledge, meditations, if you're not doing, and if you want to exchange self to others, maybe there's no possible, because there's no basis for exchanging. You don't get any kind of benefit from other, right? And you have no, no potential to help, to help other. So Shantidevas, I think Nagarjuna and Shantidevas, Ayadeva, I think in his 400 stanzas, the Bodhisattva part is kind of like more like a 6 hours cause and 1 effect. Every century had been my mother. Right? So Chandrakirti commentary in the 400 stanzas also mentioned about every kind of the 6 cause and 1 effect. Every century had been my mother. So Nagarjuna and the Shantidevas, so they are more kind of emphasizing on the about the generating compassion through exchanging self to the other. When you listen to His Holiness Dalai Lama's teaching, and His Holiness says you have to combine together. So I think 6 cause and 1 effect is already there in your practice, and addition, right? The additional what you use is kind of use maximum of your dependent rising, the realization emptiness, and through that kind of, and then you can also, this may facilitate to generating compassion much deeper and more kind of, more effectively. I think without dependent rising, is your compassion is based on believing that every sentient being had been my mother. That belief is just belief. There is no solid kind of evidence, or there's no really convincing. There's no conviction, just belief. So with dependent arising, it's really kind of so convincing to you that you are not just with this body. If you exist just this with the body, right? Then you have to agree that when I die, so that's my final. That's my there's no continuum of me. And then that further it will kind of just say, oh, if you exist just with this body, maybe you are part of meat, maybe you're part of bone, or maybe you are part of heat, maybe you are part of moisture in the body. So that means you're elements. So how come this element is so so greedy? So no wind element wants to be enlightened, right? No wind elements to help every sentient beings. So the element, if you are element, and then this is not kind of it's impossible to understand this self could be, right? This self could be the improve and ordinary to the Bodhisattva, Bodhisattva to the Arhat, Arhat to the Buddha. Yeah, thus those who strive in training in a great compassion on the basis of two factors, deeply caring for sentient beings in one's heart and contemplating the manner in which they are tormented within the second existence, have made Chandrakirti's the unique choice of compassion as the object of salutation serve its purpose. So Chandrakirti is very much saying that from the beginning, not paying homage to the Buddha, not paying homage to the Bodhisattvas, not paying homage to the Sharvaka and Pratika. First, I want to pay homage to the compassion. So why? This compassion is the seed, right? So this seed is making Bodhisattvas, this seed is making Buddha, and from the Buddha and the Pratika Buddha and Sharvaka. So all, the origin, the source of it is the compassion. So that's why he chose to, first he pay homage to the compassion. The explanations of one who fails to do this yet harbor an pretension of being as the worst in this text will resemble the recitation of a parrot. One should understand this point in other contexts of the text as well, as to how this specific form of compassion constitute the compassion that takes sentient beings as its object that will be explained later. So now you know, out of ignorance, sentient beings create the karma, and that the karma they carry by the consciousness, and the consciousness kind of links to the next life. So next life first begin with name and form, and then gradually developing sense faculties. And once the sense faculties are developed, and then start to contact with consciousness, sense power, and object. Right? So consciousness, sense power, and object mean eye consciousness, eye sense power, and the color. Nose consciousness, nose sense power, and smell. And tongue consciousness and the tongue sense power and the taste. So the contacts begin. So now the Prasangik school, when it comes to the contact, are these phenomena, the taste, the sense power, tongue consciousness, and tongue sense power, these are independently, physically, three separate phenomena, or these are just conceptually distincted three phenomena. The taste is not exist by its own, color is not exist by its own, right? So color is not in the eye is not seeing by itself a color without the consciousness, right? So with consciousness, I can see the color, right? eyes can see the color, but eye consciousness by itself, without the sense power, is not seeing. So the seeing is not done by one factors. Seeing is not done by the consciousness itself, not done by the sense power itself, not, of course, not done by the color. So that the seeing is, right? Seeing is the activity or actions that are meant conceptually constructed based on this color, sense power, and the consciousness. By constructing the activity of seeing action, and that automatically designate the seer that exists. So this is all, play by the thought, made by the thought, play by the thought, and that mental construct is the basis for the uses of the basis for the language, right? The seer is seeing, right? Eater is eating. So I think the 12 days of dependent originations meditation is the kind of the main subject here need to be discussed for generating the renunciation and the compassion. So any questions?
So when you meditate on 12 links for yourself, you go through ignorance to death and aging, and you do that also for other sentient beings?
12 links what? Can you say?
The forward, because there's a reverse order. I was just wondering if you do the reverse order for other sentient beings, or just the forward.
Yeah, I think the reverse is also, I think it's a part of that meditations, because so compassion is, as I mentioned, karuna in the Sanskrit, karuna. Literally the karuna, the kind of, what do you call, at face level, what do you call, face level meaning?
Religious? Faith level?
Superficial,
Oh,
the kind of meaning that comes from the karuna. Wow, karuna. It's not a corona. It's the karuna. So literally, it kind of saying no peace. So that means you voluntarily taking that pain, unbearable, right, of through kind of experiencing the suffering of other. Now, so there's the suffering or the pain that voluntarily kind of, taking up on you, or the suffering that involuntarily experiencing the pain. I think there's you see the difference involuntarily having experienced the suffering, voluntarily accepting the pain by reflecting on the suffering of others. So now it's saying that this karuna is accepting, kind of adapting or accepting the pain by kind of reflecting upon others' suffering. So particularly suffering here, the truth of suffering. So truth of suffering means now out of ignorance, the sentient beings committing the karma, and the karma they carry by the consciousness and carry to the next life, and next life begin with name and form, and the faculties, and the contact, and the feeling, and after the feeling, and start to craving, and after the craving, and the grasping. So grasping, and then kind of the karma again, a process of becoming. So giving karmas that almost like, I always imagine that the 12 links of independent version, the second karma and last 10th is karma. So the first is not married woman, right? The 10th is a pregnant woman. So the karma is like that. So this out of ignorance, first we commit the karma, right? So it's not really pregnant yet. So because it's not fertilized by craving and grasping yet. So once the fertilized by the craving, grasping again and again and again, then that karma become process of becoming, ready to give, take you to next life, ready to give birth of next life. So the process of become the 10th is that. So the first, the result, the first effect is like birth, and after that, aging and death. So the second and 10th is the karma. And 9th and 8th and first is afflictive emotion, ignorance. First is ignorant, and the 8th is craving, 9th is grasping. These are afflictive emotions. So this is why this master, they use the name, right? Different, afflictive emotions, and the affliction of karma, affliction of birth. So the affliction of birth means name, faculty, right? Name, faculty, contact, the feelings, and the birth and aging and death, right? So you see, name and birth, name and form, number 1, and faculties, number 2, and the contact of 3, and the feeling 4, and birth 5, aging and death 6. 6 are affliction of birth, affliction of the birth. 9, 8, 9, number 1, ignorance, afflictive emotions. These afflictive, right? So delusion mind, ignorance is the delusion mind, craving is delusion mind, grasping is delusion mind. And the second, within the 12 links, the second, first the karma, right? And then the 10th is the process of becoming. Both are karma. So karma that not yet fertilized by the craving, grasping is just a karma. Karma that fertilized by the craving, grasping is process of becoming. So the pregnant karma, bachelor karma. So you can name not married yet. So the master, they give the three kind of name, right? Afflictive emotions, or the delusions. 3 delusions, right? And 6 affliction of the birth, and 2 affliction of karma. So I think when you meditate, you think you just out of ignorance how sentient beings, right? With what conditions sentient beings, creates positive karma? With what conditions sentient beings out of ignorance and a positive karma? So I think it seems like, kind of there's even the ignorance in between karma. So what really kind of, what is the corporate condition, right? How this ignorance kind of start engaging, committing karma, right? Ignorance, simply having attached to yourself, because ignorance, the grasping the self, seeing the self as solid, concrete and solid, independent. And right after that, and because this is the most kind of vivid, this is most object that comes in the mind like day and night, even in a dream, right? I is always there, right? In the dream, right? So even you're faint in a coma, still there's I. So some people, yeah, I mentioned that one time. Yeah, there's one guy after he coming out from the coma, 6 months in the coma, and he said he always felt that he was put in the drawer, the table drawer. He was somewhere. That's still that me is there, right? So this I is so vivid and so clear and so solid and concrete. So if the mind constantly kind of made to be seen, right? Like out of anger you see the I, attachment see the I, faith see the I, compassion sees the I. So I is always there, right? So then, so naturally, as cherishing, right? Guarding, because this is what you're introduced from years and years, right? The rest always changing. Your body is changing, your nation is changing, your property is changing, your parents changing, brother changing. This I never changed. So for years and years. So naturally, you just there is a sense of guarding, cherishing it. So this cherishing and kind of, and how this negative karmas, and this cherishing not necessarily make you a negative person, a negative action, right? Grasping self and cherishing, self-cherishing, self-centered. So not necessarily self-centered, not necessarily make you negative, right? Religious sometimes because of the religion, so more self-centered. So, so you see, and people are doing some kind of positive actions because they're so concerned about herself and himself, not to born in the lower realm, right? They do some kind of offerings and purification, recitation, going to the retreat and meditations, right? So there's some kind of fear that they fear, right? That kind of that is constantly kind of making you to be more positive. So this still
you are still not free from self-centered. So now this self-centered and attachment to the body, attachment to the relation, attachment to the position, attachments, then there's some kind of negative. Because this attachment is really a very aggressive dog. So because this love his master, because of the loving, he is more aggressive to others. Right? Self-centered is just simply kind of being kind of loving yourself. So that's how it comes, right? So out of that kind of attachment to the kind of, the phenomena that called mind, attachment to the mind, attachment to me, attachment to mind. So the Chandrakirti from the beginning that says, having thought of me and cherishing to the self, having thought of mind, right, cherishing to the phenomena. So then that makes you and me, they and we, right? So it's kind of clear. There's a distance, kind of. So this kind of attachment is always likely to generate anger, right? Anger and jealousy and the pride, deluded pride.
Geshe, can you clarify what you mean by cherishing phenomena?
My body is a cherishing phenomena. This is my feeling, cherishing phenomena. This is my idea. This is my concept. This is my positions. So these are cherishing phenomena.
So cherishing phenomena as inherently existing is what it sounds like.
I think it's cherishing phenomena. So here, we don't really kind of say that there's anything that inherently exists. So it seems kind of more natural than the emotions. Cherishing self and cherishing phenomena. Cherishing self is more natural than the other kind of cherishing of the house, table, pencil, iPhone, like that. So the kind of the self and the cherishing, the mind of cherishing it, is not inherently exist.
Well, cherishing self seems to be just a composite of cherishing phenomena, because we think of self as body and mind and all these subcategories of the self. They all seem like, it sounds like phenomena it sounds like they're subcategories of oneself.
But you can also use the body, feeling, thought, discrimination, awareness, mental formations. These are component phenomena, the composite phenomena as a whole, as an I. Right. So now, kind of the tricky thing is kind of the grasping the self, kind of, this is the innate kind of, I think it's just more innate mind, right? So more kind of, it's more natural. So the I as a component phenomena, a composite phenomena, as a whole is, you see, it's that by itself is kind of, it is automatically, you can see, is constructed, mentally constructed, right? Not you have touched, you haven't touched the composite I and the body as a component, as a two separate, right? Your finger has never touched, right? You never witnessed by your physical touch. There's a composite and a component phenomena, nor that your eye has seen. Like even you are looking at the forest, that eye that looking at the forest did not physically did not see the physically forest and the trees are separate, exist. But your mind is so overpowered on the eye that I could not say anything back to you. Although I say, I don't see the forest as a singular, right? But then the mind says, shut up. So I believe in a forest is singular. So I cannot say anything. So this is, yeah. So as a composite and component phenomena, that by itself you can see is conceptually constructed. It's only the property that only experience appears to the thought, not to the eye, not to the nose, not to the body, right? It's only the object that is only the property that's seen and experienced by the thought. So just by that, you can see this is mental construct. But the way you grasping, as I mentioned, even the ants, small ants, like people who are in coma, they see that eye, right? So when the small ants are moving, you just bring your finger close to them, they will just look up on you, right? So what are you doing? So that in the way you're grasping is very innate, very natural.
Can you describe?
So that's why I'm saying this is the very natural, the way you're grasping on the eye, the way you're grasping on the eye. Not I'm talking about how I that exist, right, to you. So then, because of that, and it's natural, another natural is to guarding, cherishing, protecting that eye, liking that eye.
How come you say, how would we even know that people in a coma perceive an eye? How would we even know that?
Try it.
That coma is like
a
state of consciousness.
I will have made put you in coma so that you will say. So then we keep asking, are you seeing your eye? Are you seeing your eye? This is we kind of the people who have experience, and they say that, so they feel when this during the coma, they feel like they are put in some drawer, they are inside in the drawer. So I am here. I could not do anything, but the eye is so vivid at the time. So here, here the attributions of how we grasping, right, and what you have grasped. So two things. So now when we talk about the subject that how we grasp on the eye is very natural. See? So I'm not saying the eye that you have grasped exists by nature, by its own nature, no. So this is the kind of the years and years, thousand lives, we kind of, without someone kind of train you, or without someone teach you, we always kind of innately grasping on the self. So with that grasping and cherishing to that I, right, that's the one thing. And then I that goes with, right, my body. And so the mind, that's the second. Then within this life, right, the kind of small children, maybe 1 month, 2 months, they have not much. This is my leg and this is my hand, right? You can test. If you pinch in the leg, they just cry. If someone they're old enough to know this is my leg, and then if someone touch on the leg, the hand will go to protect the leg, right? When there's very kind of what do you call infant, small children, infant, right? So I think there's not much. This is my leg. This is my head. So yeah, if the insects or any bugs that kind of bite their leg, their hands just moving like this, because your hand is not too far from your leg. Why you not touch there? Right. This is the. I think the language we develop some kind of concept, new developing some concept. The humanly kind of. I think these are not necessary to go to school, right? Yeah. So humanly, we learn my leg and my hand. So that's what I'm saying. Now, with that attachment, that's the new, right? So this attachment or self-cherishing mind is when it's become bigger, stronger, and then there's the fixations. That attachment is very likely to generate anger. So just naturally cherishing oneself from the very beginning has not much to do with negative things. So when we introduce this is to your body, or this is my eye, this is my nose, then you go to school, oh, this is our idea, this is my art, this is my company's policies. So then I kind of make a relation to the new things, and with that attachment and grows the fixation. So out of that, any kind of actions, right? Those are called the karma. So the important things why we're saying, how do we meditate? And the 12 instant origin is how do you think out of ignorance, sentient beings, myself, committing the karma, that many ways we commit the karma. And all this karma, once is kind of generate, the next moment it ceased. And when it ceased, it's not become dissipate. It won't dissipate. It won't discontinue. It won't become non-existent. So that's why the consciousness carries all this habit and imprints in the seed. So the consciousness, while it's carrying it, and that further lies the seed within the consciousness by the craving and the grasping. So many times the craving and grasping, the further lies in the seed that you have leave within the consciousness, and then kind of eventually that karma previously as a seed, now it's like more like a sprout, ready to give rise. So then as a result, birth and aging and death, name and form and faculties. This is how we should contemplate on the 12 links dependent originations. The first, we have to reflect upon one's own 12 links dependent originations. And many times, right? So until it kind of it brings some kind of effect. It's moves your mind. So when it starts to moving your mind, moves the mind, that means you are developing the renunciation. So with that renunciation, then you can reflect on 12 dependent origination upon other sentient beings, right? And then many times reflecting on the 12 dependent origination of other sentient being, with additional, here's endearment towards sentient beings. So I think the exchanging self to the others, the basic idea is, first thing, we are equally, every sentient beings equally have the Buddha nature or the potential of becoming Buddha. And the second level, we said, all this suffering that we experience within the life is due to harming others. All this happiness and joy and successful is kind of benefiting others. So that is the basic idea, right? So then that may have helped you to generate sentient beings are kind of critical, kind of the condition for you to improve, for you to be successful, for you to be patient, for you to be a compassionate person, for you to be leader, for you to be a guru, for you to be a guidance. So without sentient beings, it is impossible. So in this way, kind of you will change the way you look at the sentient beings. The sentient beings is more closer, right? So that's how you say, then you can develop sense of endearment, sense of respect regarding, right? So with that sense of endearment towards sentient beings, sense of respect to the sentient beings, sense of kind of how precious they are, and then reflecting 12 links of independent origination of other. So there are more chances to developing compassion towards the sentient beings. Yeah. So compassion, I think the further it makes it more stronger is the realization emptiness. So more kind of understanding the dependent rising, the stronger the compassion. And that compassion is not just blindly forceful or influencing. No, it's compassion that brings skill, compassion that brings knowledge, compassion that increases the wisdom. Sometimes people you see, some people are very crying, very emotional when they see others suffering. And that compassion remains for a very short time. Right. So because this very much based on emotional. And emotional may not necessarily you're crying for that particular person. Maybe you remember what you had in your past. Or you may have remembering that what happened to my sisters and the brothers. So people see you are crying for this person, but you are not crying for it. So something else, right? So these emotions is kind of, it has not much kind of stable foundation. Any other questions?
Geshe-la, I know that there are some lamas who talk about the self-cherishing thought and how, well, it's just interesting because you said that the cherishing thought isn't bad because we can use it to create positive karma. But I have seen a lot of different lamas, maybe, I don't know, different lineages or whatever, talk about how it's bad, kind of, and how it's something that it's like, oh, you need to just eliminate the self-cherishing thought because it's this and that. So I'm just curious as to like why it seems like there's two different opinions on that.
I think it's sometimes your kind of your talk, maybe you're trying to explain something, you're trying to say something, maybe because of you're breaking that, trying to explain something, your explanation is become too general, right? It's not really kind of landing particular point. So you're just repeating what the text says, right? So in the Bodhisattvas, even if they said Bodhisattvas and Arhat. So Arhat is the liberated beings who has successfully gone beyond the samsaric kind of condition, suffering condition. Now this is compared to the Bodhisattvas. Arhat's peace is nothing. Right? The Arhat is the kind of not the goal that you should follow. So you are falling into Hinayana. So compared to the Bodhisattvas, if you just look at Arhat, this is the kind of the great achievement. The free from all the afflictive emotion is the great. So now where the Bodhisattva is thinking and compared to that, and Arhat is not that important, right? So so self-cherishing here, the self-cherishing is bad in comparing, right? Comparing to Bodhisattvas, they are exchanging to the self to the others. They have no cherishing to the self, kind of like ordinary people, like even the good peoples. So they don't see even the self that exists in one factors. They don't see the self-cherishing. There is no self to be cherished. There's no self that exists by itself to be cherished. So from their point of view, the cherishing self, with that, you can do something positive karma, you can be born in God realm, the human being, form realm, formless realm, even you can achieve many high realizations, but, right, still all this realization is a samsaric knowledge. There's only the benefit you can achieve through that is in the samsara. Right? So it's compared to the Bodhisattvas kind of abandoning, kind of deliberately, like, intentionally, kind of get rid of the self-cherishing. And with that, in cherishing self is a stupid thought. But self-cherishing is working in many sense. Right? With self-cherishing, we continue to do the positive things, compassion, generosity, right? So people do that, like if they want to help someone, and they also have in their mind, so do they praise me? Do they respect me? Right? if you are doing something for other, if it's the other who shows disrespect, you will stop. So that means you are out of self-cherishing, you're doing something, right? Even within the parents and the friends and the brother and sister, we do that, right? So there is some kind of, it's not the perfect quality, but it's the good thing. It will give you many benefits. Compared to iPhone 13, iPhone 5 is not that good. But if you have no iPhone at all, first time having iPhone 5 is very good. So I think you should kind of, when you say, if you say he is tall, you have to compare with the kind of short one. Without short, you cannot. So I think without kind of showing why you are saying self-cherishing is bad. So first you have to make the point, right? No cherishing self is the good, and then you say self-cherishing is bad. So many times we just, sometimes the teaching, sometimes like regurgitating what you heard, you're just saying to others. Right? If you say, oh, sometimes you find yourself as a strong and smart. So you have to first you think someone smart, someone less smart than you, and then you find you're smart. Someone less weak, kind of weaker than you find you are stronger. Without comparing, you cannot think, right? So yeah, the way the Bodhisattvas, where they kind of overcome, intentionally overcoming the self-cherishing, right? So the benefit they get from that overcoming the self-cherishing, with self-cherishing, you can only go you can just only circle in the samsara. You can just jump higher in your house, not in the roof. I think self-cherishing that lead us to do, for me to become monk, self-cherishing that lead me to study, self-cherishing that lead me to do the exam, to get the degree, self-cherishing, so it's all like that, right? I think self-cherishing that we sleep, self-cherishing to wake up, breakfast. So if self-cherishing isn't that bad, and then going to school is bad, taking showers, taking medicines, going to doctors, phone call, tree trimmers, these are all very negative things. I think, yeah, last year we found there's a leaking, so we called someone to fix, put the patch, and the patch didn't work. Then you have changed whole roof. So these are all self-cherishing. Without if there's no self-cherishing, then I may sit there and just all the water's dropping on my head. Milarepa, no self-cherishing, no house, no. There's a story with one time the thief came to Milareva's cave, and he was trying to find something to steal, and Milareva said, sitting at the corner in the cave, and he was laughing. So, how can you find light? I couldn't find it in daytime. So, that thief was very angry. He just kind of pushed him to the cliff. So, Milareva, and he flies, he glides to the other mountain. You see that? You see? Yeah, self-cherishing. Yeah. Okay. No questions, right? Chanchu simjo rinpoche, ma jeba na gejuji, jeba nyamba mewa nyam, kone kondo pewashe, donye tawa rinpoche, ma jeba na gejuji, jeba nyamba mewa nyam, kone kondo pewashe, pama simjan tamjen, dedan denjuji, nyedro tamje tatu towa, chanchu simba kana sushu, teda kunju, monam drupjiruji, karera wego weshi lazo, pendan dewa malun jowe, chere sewa, tinzin jazu yin shabe, side badu denjuji.
May the precious body mind, rapid born, arising from. May the born have no divine body grace forever. May the precious mind realizing emptiness, not yet arising from. May the born have no divine body grace forever. Due to all these merits, may all father and mother saintly beings have all the happiness, and may all lower realms be empty forever. Wherever there are bodhisattvas, may all their prayers be accomplished immediately. In the sacred land surrounded by snow mountain, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. All powerful Trinity Tenzin Gyatso, remain in this world until samsara ends.
Thank you. Thank you very much.